Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into a genuinely wild, highly polarizing narrative straight out of the Andrew Tate emergency interview. Look, whether you see him as this mastermind of internet marketing, a cultural phenomenon, or, a deeply controversial guy facing some very severe criminal charges, the story he lays out in this sit-down is huge. It's this sprawling saga about his explosive rise to wealth, his international legal battles, and honestly, the crushing psychological weight of sudden, inescapable global fame. So let's just dive right into this. We're going to objectively unpack this multi-year timeline strictly based on the claims and the allegations that he himself presented.
To really get this, we've got to anchor the whole explainer around this one specific quote. Tate says, "First they try and cancel you, then they put you in jail, and if that doesn't work, they kill you." He literally uses this concept as the foundation to frame his entire conflict with global authorities. In his telling, his journey through the legal system isn't just bad luck or standard policing. No, he sees it as a highly calculated, three-step escalation by state actors. And keeping that lens in mind is absolutely crucial for understanding the rest of the information we're about to cover. All right, to make sense of this pretty chaotic timeline, here's our roadmap for today. We've got 5 chapters. 1. Rise of Hustlers University. 2. The Matrix attacks. 3. The Sword of Damocles. 4. Arrests and jail. And finally, 5. The legal aftermath.
Okay, kicking things off with Chapter 1, The Rise of Hustlers University. 271,000. Just think about that number for a second. That was his peak student enrollment. Tate talks about starting this platform from super humble beginnings, literally just a few friends in a Telegram chat. But it ended up operating at a staggering 80% profit margin. By charging a pretty accessible $50 a month, this alternative online school was pulling in roughly $15 million every single month. It was an absolute financial snowball. It completely transformed him from a fringe internet kickboxer to the head of this wildly lucrative edtech business, basically overnight, all while pitching it as the ultimate alternative to an expensive traditional college education.
So, you're probably wondering, how on earth did it grow that incredibly fast? Well, it all comes down to what he calls his clipping strategy. Tate essentially armed what you could call a decentralized mercenary army of affiliates. They built this interactive, completely transcribed video library with basically everything he'd ever recorded. From there, his students created 28,000 independent fan pages. They'd cut these short, punchy clips, throw them up on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and they'd earn direct commissions anytime their viral videos drove new signups. And because, social media algorithms absolutely love outrage, the most controversial clips just skyrocketed. The idea spread like wildfire and eventually made him the most Googled man on the planet.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, The Matrix attacks, or as he refers to it, the cancellation.
Now, this wasn't some slow fade into obscurity. Actually, it was a rapid, brutal digital erasure that happened in August 2022. First, early in the month, he claims NGOs started coordinating all this negative press behind the scenes. Then came the big one. Social media blanket bans, getting completely deplatformed from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, all at exactly the same time. But the suppression went way deeper than just losing followers. He talks about waking up to find his Apple ID totally logged out, his Uber and Airbnb accounts just completely wiped, and ultimately his UK bank accounts and crypto exchanges entirely frozen. His massive digital footprint was literally vaporized overnight.
And Tate makes a really specific, severe claim about why this happened. He insists this wasn't just corporate policy, right? Like it wasn't just big tech deciding to ban him. He alleges this was a highly coordinated state-level attack. Specifically, he claims British intelligence flagged him as an unchecked source of influence. Because he had the ear of literally millions of young men around the world, he asserts that authorities genuinely believed he was capable of sparking a cultural revolution. So in his eyes, they treated him not as a nuisance, but as a national security threat and threw him on a terror watch list.
Moving right into Chapter 3, The Sword of Damocles, which really gets into the psychological weight of all this.
To truly grasp where his head was at during this chaotic rise, we have to look at this classic metaphor. The Sword of Damocles is an ancient story about a king who lets a slave take his throne for a single day. At first, the slave absolutely loves it, the immense power, the food, the luxury, until he looks up. Hanging directly over his head is a heavy, razor-sharp sword, held in place by nothing but a single, fragile horse's hair. It's a perfect illustration of the constant peril and crushing anxiety that comes with being in a position of immense power. And this perfectly illustrates the duality of Tate's life at his absolute peak. On one hand, he's the king, right? He's generating hundreds of millions of dollars, he's got this loyal army of 28,000 fan pages, and he's achieving unprecedented global fame, flying around in private jets. But hanging over him is the sword, constant state surveillance, frozen financial assets, and this looming, terrifying threat that authorities were just waiting to drop the hammer. He explains that because of this, he felt he could never truly enjoy his success. He couldn't even sleep peacefully because he just knew that single hair holding the sword was about to snap at any moment.
All right, Chapter 4, Arrests and Jail. This is the climax in Romania.
Now, the legal timeline he walks through is honestly a bit of a dense maze. It all started in April 2022 with a sudden SWAT raid based on what he vehemently claims were completely fabricated kidnapping allegations made by one woman who he calls Girl A. Then fast forward to December 2022, and the major raid happens. This led to his actual incarceration on incredibly serious allegations involving organized crime and human trafficking. And if that wasn't enough, later in July 2023, while he was already on house arrest, he faced another massive hurdle, a UK extradition attempt over an alleged assault warrant from way back in 2011.
But during these raids, the authorities didn't just walk out with laptops and hard drives. Tate details the seizure of roughly $15 million in tangible physical assets. We're talking his entire fleet of high-end luxury vehicles, numerous diamond watches, literal gold bars, Romanian real estate deeds, and stacks of hard cash they just found on the premises. In the interview, he argues that seizing this staggering amount of wealth was actually the primary motivator for corrupt Romanian authorities. He essentially frames the whole operation as a massive state-sanctioned shakedown.
After that huge December raid, Tate says he was thrown into a freezing, dilapidated Romanian jail cell for 4 straight months, without ever facing a trial. He explains this complex foreign legal loophole. Under Romanian law, authorities can hold a suspect in preventive detention for up to 50% of the maximum sentence for their alleged crimes, without actually formally convicting them of anything. He also makes a very pointed assertion that neither the US nor the UK embassies would lift a finger to help him. For him, this absolutely confirms that his detention was politically motivated by higher state powers.
Finally, Chapter 5, The Legal Aftermath and Tate's Counteroffensive.
You know, normally lawyers will heavily advise a client in this situation to just lay low and stay completely quiet. But Tate? He aggressively fought back on 3 distinct fronts. Step 1. He launched a massive, multi-million-dollar lawsuit in Florida courts against Girl A for defamation and false claims. Step 2. After his domains and payment processors got seized, he poured millions into rebuilding his entire university infrastructure from scratch on independent, bulletproof servers. Step 3. He launched his own emergency meeting broadcasts. He wanted to bypass legacy media entirely and fight this massive public relations war directly with whatever audience he had left.
But as he's mounting this counteroffensive, Tate claims things took a very dark turn. Now, we are just neutrally reporting his most extreme allegation here, but he asserts that state actors started deploying highly sophisticated psychological warfare against him. He claims that he, his girlfriends, and the mothers of his children started receiving these perfectly written, highly coordinated physical letters and messages. Allegedly, these letters used advanced psychological profiling, basically urging him to take his own life, to become a martyr, while at the same time urging the women to abandon him and just take whatever money he had left. So, based on all these sprawling, intense claims mapped out in the interview, it leaves us with one really vital question. Is this truly a case of a targeted, systemic takedown orchestrated by global intelligence to crush a cultural rebellion? Or are these severe legal battles, bans, and seizures just the inevitable consequences of weaponizing unchecked, highly controversial online influence at an unprecedented global scale? It is an absolutely fascinating look at modern digital power. I'm going to leave it entirely to you to weigh the evidence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and always keep questioning what you see.